Hi there, welcome to the Dylan Rounds case. In recent times, some never-seen-before documents have been released because it's the right time to do so, and it's been mentioned on East Idaho News and other news programs. But what I want to do today is actually look at it, present it to you regarding a specific document of a previous case in the past which involves James Brenner. I don't know how far it dates back to, but nevertheless, it's along the same themes of a gun, violence, shooting. How similar is it to the Dylan Rounds situation? Could this never-seen-before document, which goes into great deal explaining what actually happened at the time, be like history repeating itself back in 2022 of May 28th? Is there a link to be made? Because with time, people have thought, is Brenner really the one? People questioned it. And in recent time, even though how the case has gone and justice has been made to an extent, Candice Cooley has mentioned that during these released documents, she doesn't want people to question or think that there's someone else and that Brenner is the innocent one. I think it's pretty obvious that Brenner is the guilty one, but not everybody always sees it that way. But along the way, when trying to work out why Brenner would do it to Dylan, that was another question which not everybody saw eye to eye with. But really early on, I highlighted the possibility that what was seen and done in the past, whether it be Maryland or another situation, is kind of similar with Dylan Rounds. Things escalating in the moment and a bit of a snap. Disagreements, disputes, and if you've got a petty individual or someone that gets triggered easily, regardless of who they are, age, and where they're from, it can happen. So by looking at this document today, it might put things more into perspective. Without further ado, let's head on over. As you can see on screen, there's about 4 pages which we're going to get through bit by bit and just read it out. So this is to do with James Adrian Brenner, full name. This is to do with assault with intent to murder. Now, is this directly to do with Maryland or what? It's just because there was a time in the past, there was a reference to a situation, a shooting, intent to kill, but then it was reduced, the charge, to malicious wounding of some sort. But regardless of how it changed after or in court, in the moment, if it's done with intent, even if unsuccessful, you kind of see where Brenner is in his mindset. That's how you can apply it to Dylan Rounds' intent to kill Dylan. And it literally happened because Dylan was shot multiple times in the head. And something like that is not an accident, as some people tried pushing at one point. But I like the case file type, how it's visual. It looks gritty and dark, but realistic. I know it's official documents. I think it might have been photocopied. I'm not too sure. It's just a colouring of it. 510. Now some things I guess are redacted, covered up. Sensitive info. But what's the statement of charges? 6 of the 2nd, 86. Right, so we're saying 1986 at approximately 5:50 p.m. a report of an assault with a handgun was filed at the Cosca Regional Park Campground. Oh, a regional park campground. So I'm guessing this is different to the Maryland situation. That was a work dispute. This investigation showed that the defendant was at the Cosca Regional Campground sitting in his truck. Danny Weir and Michael Sproul had stopped to talk with the defendant about a new job. Oh, I see. Since the defendant had been laid off by Mr. Weir earlier in the day, the defendant allegedly uncovered a handgun from under a something. It is formally charged that the defendant continued on. Right. June 2nd, 1986, Cosca Regional Park did assault Danny Weir with the intent to then and there commit murder. So in that moment, 1986, Brenner was willing in the moment to commit murder and kill that individual that was in front of him because of to do like a work dispute, a new job opportunity. So even though maybe there wasn't much tension, Brenner was like, no, I'm not having this, pull out the gun. Doesn't sound too good, does it? Someone like this, who was then years later around Dylan Rounds, a 19-year-old by himself in the desert area of Lucin, Utah, to be around a person like that. And let's not forget, James Brenner was the one which Dylan Rounds overheard because Dylan was next to Brenner at the time, sometime in 2021, I think it was, where Brenner had a falling out with Dylan's father, and when Dylan's father wasn't present, Brenner said, "I'm going to kill him," right? And whilst it might have been an empty threat at the time and Dylan didn't take it too seriously, thought he was just an ass, you look back to this, where an individual or two approached Brenner at a campground regarding a new job, which isn't a negative thing, but because of a negative experience beforehand, which Brenner had, being laid off, there is already a bad taste in his mouth. So the next time somebody approaches him, whether it be the same ones that caused his issues in the first place, or pettiness, he takes it out and retaliates. That's what Brenner does. So what did Dylan Rounds do which caused Brenner to snap? It might put it more into perspective now, don't you think? Moving on, District Court of Maryland. Oh yeah, okay, so it does say Maryland now, I can clearly see it. So this is still to do with the Maryland situation as what we looked at in the past, the work dispute. This is all the same thing. Apologies if there was a bit of confusion earlier on. Okay, but it just goes to show that I was right and I was on the right pathway in the past with the links made. So what else do we have here? 1986. Yeah, assault. All right, he did assault Michael Sprout with the intent to then commit murder. What else do we have? Violation. I mean, if you want to pause it, you can always do that. So that Brenner did use an antique firearm capable of being concealed on the person in the commission of a felony to assault with intent to murder. Okay. That's pretty much blank. That too. Defendant's name, Brenner James Adrian. Application for statement of charges. So, blanket and reached for the gun. Blanket? What? What does blanket mean? Reached for the gun, as he did. The victim, Mr. Ware, reached for the defendant's arm and the two struggled over the weapon. Could that have been the same situation with Dylan Rounds, who saw that Brenner had a weapon and tried fighting him? Who knows? The victim Ware started. He grabbed the defendant's hand and tried to push his arm and the gun away from his chest area. As he did, the gun discharged, striking him in the right thigh area. The bullet then entered the right calf of Michael Sprout, who was standing behind Mr. Ware. The defendant stated to Mr. Ware, "I'm going to kill you, you mother beep. You caused me my job." So you can see the extreme rage that Brenner had. It just so happens that in the Dylan Rounds case, I can't remember how long ago it was before, but Dylan did lay off Brenner to an extent, but more so Don Hatley, so maybe there was a bad taste, an atmosphere. Brenner already didn't like Dylan in the past, as Dylan's father witnessed, when Brenner showed a strong form of jealousy and hatred towards Dylan because of the age and what he had and the farming and all of it. So it could have been building up with time. But yeah, literally saying, "I'm going to kill you," in the moment, all because of being laid off. And yet these individuals approached Brenner to give him a new job, and Brenner wasn't having any of it. Says a lot. As the two struggled over the gun, the defendant attempted to cock the gun for another shot. At that time, Mr. Ware tried to take the gun from the defendant. The defendant shouted to his dog, a German Shepherd, to attack Mr. Ware, which the dog did. Mr. Ware was bitten several times on the leg and scratched about the chest area. Mr. Ware finally gained control of the gun and with the help of witnesses at the scene got the defendant off of him. The defendant then went to Mr. Custerborder, who had been given the gun by Mr. Ware. The defendant demanded his gun back after he was unable to obtain his gun. The defendant fled in his truck. A lookout was issued for the defendant, who was located at the 7-Eleven at 9820 Piscataway Road in Clinton. He was arrested and transported to the Park Police Headquarters. The defendant was read his rights when he wavered. The defendant advised that he did not remember the incident as he was intoxicated at the time. Is that entirely true? We've heard that Brenner does drink a fair bit of alcohol over time, and when he was sent to jail, obviously he couldn't have it anymore, so he did change visually and I guess lose weight. But if it all comes down to alcohol, does it excuse it all? No, not at all. But does it link to the Dylan Rounds case that Brenner was heavy drinking on the day of the 28th or maybe the 27th at night time? Bit of a hangover, in a mood already, one thing led to another. It's worth taking into consideration. It says, when asked if he owned a gun, he stated yes, that he owned a 44 cal Ruger revolver, 6-shot black powder model, which he keeps in his truck. That's June 3rd, 1986. Go down here, defendant's name, Brenner. Application for statement or charges statement of probable cause. The weapon which was recovered at the scene of the shooting is a Strum Ruger 44 cal revolver, 6-shot black powder model. Defendant was processed and transported to the commission office. So you see the brutality of it, that Brenner was intent on shooting the individual. There was a confrontation up close, person defending themselves, Mr. Ware, and the other individual who was shot as well when it passed through to the Calf area. Is pretty rough, to be honest. And even though it was a 2-on-1 situation, Brenner still managed to hurt the other person. And you think about Dylan Rounds, who, is younger, but Brenner older. Fast forward on to 2022, but still, maybe the size difference, the weight difference. I mean, take in mind that in the past, 1986, you got that German Shepherd dog, which Brenner ordered to attack the people. That's pretty brutal as well. So it's like embedded within to defend, to attack in Brenner's mindset, and having that influence over other things, even animals too. In the Dylan Rounds case, Brenner did have a horse, but I don't think Brenner could have ordered the horse to attack Dylan Rounds. I don't think it goes that far-fetched, but you know what I'm saying? Is that it? Other pages, yeah? In my opinion, I'd say that event in 1986 can definitely link to the Dylan Rounds case of 28th of May 2022. Similar situations, basically a very similar theme of firearms being used, or a firearm, and shots fired. As for the outcomes, different there though, because Dylan died, murdered, Mr. Ware never just injured, but still an intent to kill in both situations. So there is a clear crossover, very similar in that sense, kind of in rural areas too. Now with Dylan Rounds, was there any conversation there? Was there any work dispute? That key theme and topic. You never know, right? Because the reason why Dylan was leaving from his farm area, as you see here, which is now abandoned on his pivot, he was taking his grain truck to the grain shed on the 28th because rain was incoming. It was actually raining on the day early on, and even witnesses nearby who were camping out near Little Pigeon Mountains over here reported hellacious rain. So for that, Dylan had to park the grain truck because it was full of seeds. He didn't want to ruin the resources because it's very costly, and he cares about farming. So upon making it to the crossroads near Sun Tunnels, and then taking a right here and heading this way to reach the grain shed property, getting past the gate, which may or may not have been locked, attempting to make a call to Brenner to announce that he's coming on down, but Brenner not willing to answer, whether that be because he was awake and couldn't be bothered, or he was asleep. Either way, Dylan making it to the grain shed property, as you see here, attempting at least to reverse the grain truck inside of the shed, whether the horse gate was closed or not, which may have been, may have caused damage, a loud sound, bang, could have woken up Brenner, getting out of his trailer to confront Dylan and having a go at him. That's how one thing can lead to another, escalate. Brenner may or may not already be in a bad mood, takes it out on Dylan. Was there any exchange? Was there much conversation? Or was it just suddenly in the moment of just pull out the gun and bang, like that? From what Candice Cooley said in a recent interview, that the firearm was used on Dylan was Brenner's own firearm, not Dylan's. There was some talk in the past that did Brenner get a hold of Dylan's gun and use it against him, but that doesn't seem to be the case at this moment. But anyway, multiple shots to the head. In terms of the 1986 event, one shot or so was fired, enough to cause injury to two individuals, but not enough to kill them, and not enough time to fire another shot. But take in mind the different firearms back then. What, an antique firearm, you had to cock it back again to fire. In terms of the exact firearm used in the Dylan Rounds case, I'm not too sure which model it was. If it's something you don't have to cock back again, you can just fire it, boom, 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 one after another. Obviously, that's the reason why Dylan was probably shot more times in the head compared to 1986. And in terms of 1986, it was 2 against 1, really. And there was other people who arrived nearby. For Dylan, it was just Dylan and Brenner. And I'm sure Dylan wasn't anticipating what was going to be happening. So whether Dylan was caught off guard, whether it happened from a bit of a distance or if it was up close, the other question would be, was there a scuffle? Was there a bit of a fight? Was Dylan trying to disarm Brenner, but it went wrong and was shot in the face, in the head? And from what distance was Dylan shot at? The closer it is, the higher the chances that there was some kind of argument, talking, conversation, self-defense. From afar, there's no time to defend yourself or react. You just shot like that. So there are some possibilities, but it seems very clear that what happened in 1986, history repeated itself many years later for Dylan Rounds, wrong place, wrong time, Brenner snapping, possibly work dispute. In this case could be, why are you coming onto this land, Dylan, unwelcomed or uninvited, and why are you doing it so early on in the morning, and why did you damage my horse gate, things like that. And Brenner not taking things into consideration and just acting without thinking like how he normally does. I said in the past, history can repeat itself, and that's what probably happened in this case with what's happened in the past, Brenner's dark history. And because no action was taken with time, because in 2021 that aggravated assault wasn't followed up in time, it was delayed. So then it gave the chance for Brenner to be a walking free man, and then eventually the inevitable with Dylan. So it could have been prevented to an extent. And if things were taken more seriously with Brenner, as in being a repeated offender and the same themes of carrying firearms where you're not supposed to, using them against people, hurting individuals, if Dylan Rounds knew this about Brenner, do you think Dylan would be hanging around Brenner? Probably not. If the parents did background research or a check on Brenner, would they have been willing to have Dylan be here by himself farming? Probably not. But was there a reason to do a background check on someone like Brenner at any point? I would argue and say, yeah, the time when Justin Rounds was threatened, when Brenner said, I will kill you. Well, look what happened back then. In the moment, Maryland, I will kill you. And that's what Brenner was intending on doing. He didn't get the chance, but he was in the moment of doing it. And whilst it didn't happen to Justin Rounds because they weren't in the same location at the time of when those words were exchanged, if they were, who knows what could have happened. So maybe the next best thing was, in Brenner's mind was, right, I'll take it out on Dylan instead because of a particular petty reason. You see? There were links, there were crossovers from many years then to many years in recent time. But because things weren't done in between, more bad things happened, basically. So hopefully people understand that. There's just a quick little summary and recap of some important documents. Hopefully you enjoyed the video. Feel free to like and share, and we'll see what happens next. Goodbye for now.